Evan Lazar is back in the draft room.
Getting late. It's getting late. We're into the dog days of the draft, right? We're in the middle of it, so it's
Yeah,
gonna be a night. But
yeah. A couple things of note.
yep,
Uh, Travis Jones, a guy who we kind of thought was logical for the Patriots to take if they stood pat at 54, lasted
sure.
all the way to 76, goes to the Ravens. And we have another quarterback taken. Desmond Ridder goes to Atlanta here at pick number 74. Two picks of note as the Patriots. Patriots are close. They pick at 85 and then again at 94. Obviously, there's always a chance to trade up here, which is something they could easily do
Right.
if they wanted to. And that's what we got. They did, of course, trade up from 54 to 50 to take Tyquan Thornton. Evan's brain has been broken. I don't think we're going to put it back together for the duration of the draft. Guys, he spends a lot of time doing homework, okay? You can't just do this. You can't just draft these guys without some advance warning. But this is what happened here. So, pardon me. So that's where we're at. Again,
Yes.
remaining picks here, 2/3, 2/4, with the thirds coming up here right now. Let's reset Evan Lazar's big board and one player.
The big board that is really doing so very successful this year so far. We're really cruising.
There's a bit of information on Nakobe Dean and Rappaport of the NFL Network reported that he is dealing with a severely strained pec that he opted not to have surgery on in the offseason. As a result, he's really cost himself, all of this draft stock here because, when you have an injury like this, one, you're not super effective, and two,
Right.
the risk of a tear and then eventual surgery is very, very high. So I don't know why Nakobe Dean would do something like this. He certainly didn't do himself any favors. It would literally take one person with a good head on their shoulders to say, yeah, dude, get the surgery, and then people will draft you because you'll
Right.
recover and you'll be fine. So I don't know what's going on here, but this is what happened. This is why he has fallen to this point. At what point, given what we know here, is he value?
Oh, he's already value. I mean, this is a guy that I think healthy, 100% healthy, no injury concerns, no red flags whatsoever, is a back end of the first round pick. I mean, I'm shocked that he's fallen this far. I think he's already value. I think you take the chance, you get in the room and you say, Nakobe, like, you need the surgery, right? And you get him the surgery and you're better off for it in the long run. But I look at this linebacker board. I must have missed it if Chad Mumma went, then that's my mistake. But you look at this linebacker board, and this is there's still some good talent at that spot. And if you're really looking for the best available players in terms of just raw athletic upside and talent, I think you're looking at linebacker and looking at some of these names still there, like Leo Chenal, for example. Or I know everybody wants the Georgia defense. We might not be talking about Nakobe Dean for the Patriots, and maybe Channing Tindall, who's down this list a little bit. And
Mama went at 70
okay, yeah. So I was
to the Jaguars. Yep.
on the
Yep.
call with our new wide receiver there, Tyquan Thornton. So I must have missed that one. So look, we're still in value play, I would say, at linebacker. I think that's some really good talent there. Leo Chenal, to me, just is a real Patriot. Like, still a downhill guy, still a thumper, still somebody that can take on blocks and play that sort of style. But he tested really well at the combine, and he's a little bit of a better athlete than, like, let's say, Juwan Bentley, right? That's still the mold that we're talking about there, but we're talking about a much better athlete than what they had at that spot with Juwan Bentley. So you still stay in the type, right? You still stay into that mold, but you get a little bit more athleticism out of a guy like Leo Chenal. I love Zion McCollum here as well. We've talked about corners a ton.
Angelo does too here. Yep.
Yeah, we still haven't gone corner yet here for the Patriots. And at this point in the draft, there's nobody that has a higher ceiling, in my opinion, than Zion McCollum. Down at the FCS level, He had 13 interceptions. He absolutely destroyed the combine. He had the best workout at the combine of any cornerback prospect in the history of tracking at the combine. Over 30 years of combine tracking, nobody put up a more complete workout than Zion McCollum from Sam Houston State. So he's got some real press man ability. He's got some real ability to develop and become an absolute star. So you look at these two picks here that the Patriots have back to back. If they can come away with what Angelo is touting here, to me, if they can come away with Chenal and they can come away with Zion McCollum from these two picks, they've done really well for themselves. Not, and this is what the Patriots do in the draft, and this is where I've kind of wrapped my head around all these things already. Is it wasn't that we necessarily didn't see the fits or see the holes on the roster, right? We knew that they needed a guard. We knew that they needed to add wide receiver talent. They just took guys that the consensus, did not necessarily think were the guys that they would take, right? They just went in a different direction, which is so typical Patriots. So maybe they do that to us again here at linebacker and at corner. But I think both of those spots are still where I would be headed with these two picks now, especially with the fact that they have all those picks on day 3 to address some of those secondary needs like running back or tackle, developmental tackle. I'm thinking that they can still get contributors here at linebacker and corner, guys that can play for them as rookies.
So there's no starters to be had here?
Oh, yeah. No, I think Leo Chenal would start at linebacker for them if they're willing to have him start over Juwan Bentley. I don't know. That's going to be the question. Coach's favorite former team captain in Juwan Bentley.
Right.
I don't know how much the coaching staff would be willing to bench Bentley for Leo Chenal, but I think Leo Chenal has day one starter written all over him. Really, really good blitzer as well. So that's, I think, something that you would see too with a guy like Leo Chenal, is that ability to line up on the line of scrimmage or blitz from off the ball and be effective as a pass rusher. You pull him out of coverage that way a little bit too, and don't get him too picked on in coverage at linebacker there. So I could see that. Perrion Winfrey won the Senior Bowl MVP. Tyquan Thornton was another Senior Bowl guy, by the way.
I noticed there's no receivers left here. Is that because you couldn't possibly see them double dipping, or you think there's no value left?
Here. The one drafted, if you want the double dip at wide receiver, John, because you're
I'm just saying. I'm just
messing with you.
And I am addicted, yes.
If you want the double dip at wide receiver, the draft to look at is that 2013 draft. You're not going to like the names. Aaron Dobson and Josh Boyce, right? That was second round and fourth.
Yep.
So we're not quite there yet, I don't think.
I'm just saying, is there a name left? Like, if they had not taken a receiver in the second round, are there names you like here?
Khalil Shakur from Boise State, to me, is they took the upside guy with Tyquan Thornton. They took the player with the raw physical speed and talent in a guy like Thornton. And Shakur, to me, is like a lot more polished and somebody that they could see as a plug-and-play slot receiver, I would say. And maybe that's the direction that they go. They think I clearly think that Thornton at 6'2" with 4.28 speed, he's an X in their offense, right? He's
Aguilar. Yeah.
Yeah. So the player comparison that I used for him was Robbie Anderson. I think he's a little bit faster than Nelson Aguilar. So I give him that credit of upgrading him a little bit to Robbie Anderson status. So somewhere in that conversation is what you're getting with somebody like Tyquan Thornton. So he's an outside guy. For inside guys, you got somebody like Khalil Shakur, I think would be a really interesting inside guy. My guy, Danny Gray from SMU, is still out there, I believe. He could be somebody that might play a little bit more inside, a little bit more in the slot. So if you're looking for that succession plan, if Jacoby Myers is not a long-term fit in New England or something like that for some reason, maybe you can go in that direction. But yeah, it's wide receiver double dip. I think they've ignored defense. They've taken 2 offensive players so far.
Right.
And on the positive side of that, I do think it does show somewhat a understanding that they are going to have to compete on the scoreboard more so than building on defense and trying to stop people, right? I think that's one positive that you can take away from that. But at this point in the top 100, I would be floored if they don't take at least one defensive player on that side of the ball, because You still got a lot of holes on defense at corner. I still think that you need something in the front seven, whether it's a linebacker or a defensive lineman. You need to add a guy that's a potential playmaker for you in the front seven. So I would be really floored if we get out of the top 100 and we're just going all offense. I mean,
I would be too. And again, it would certainly make sense here, for them to grab at least one, if not two defensive players with these selections coming up. Just looking at the entire draft, are you surprised it took as long as it did for a second quarterback to be taken? I know, people were down on quarterbacks this year for sure, but teams always kind of freak out and they're like, I got to get my guy. And they do, and they overdraft even if they don't necessarily love the player. Didn't happen this time. One pick in the first round, and then you wait all the way till 74 until a quarterback is taken, and that's it right now. Are you surprised?
I am surprised that Willis and Ritter didn't find a home a little bit earlier. And poor Matt Corral got invited to Vegas. He's in Vegas, and he's still on the board in the third round. So I feel for guys like that too, right? I mean, that's just why the league does that to these guys is beyond me. It's bad business. Like, these guys are not going to want to show up to the draft anymore and be a part of this anymore if they're going to send out these invitations to guys that are going to go in the third or fourth round. I mean, it's just, what's the point of showing up then? So I feel for guys like Matt Corral who ended up going. So we'll see. Like I said earlier, to me, it's smart. I think the teams are evolving with quarterbacks, and they're not reaching on quarterbacks insanely like they used to. I think a guy like Malik Willis, for example, is a comparable prospect to like EJ Manuel, who was drafted
in the first round. Yeah,
by Buffalo all those years ago. And I've heard that comp a lot for a guy like Malik Willis. Now Malik Willis is still on the board. So teams have evolved. I love the idea. Like I said, I love the idea that teams are smart enough to realize now, let's just build up the entire roster around the quarterback, and then we'll get to the quarterback eventually. Like, it doesn't need to be the quarterback first. We can do the quarterback second. We can get the tackle, we can get the receiver, we can get the run game, and then we can go ahead and get the quarterback. And I think that's the right way to look at it, in my opinion.
Yeah, EJ Manuel for that matter, since you mentioned again, 2013 was the only other year there where only one quarterback went in the first round. It was EJ Manuel to the Bills at number 16 overall. But that's what you have here. Again, really strange after seeing 5 quarterbacks go in the top 15 picks last year, to see this happen this year. But it did. Wide receiver tied a record through the first 2 rounds, most receivers taken. And again, this is a trend that I think this isn't going to be an anomaly here. This is going to be the norm, I think, going forward in terms of that receiver position. The Patriots got theirs. Evan has dug into some tape. He's going to have some thoughts. Go over and check them out on Patriots Press Pass on our YouTube channel. More in depth, a little bit more scouting, and a write-up.
To be fair, I don't want to drag the Patriots too much for the reach thing and all that kind of stuff. I did watch both of these players before the draft.
Yes,
I just thought that there
were other better ones there.
But they were in my spreadsheet. Everybody that follows along on the spreadsheet, can go and look at my reports on both of Cole Strange and on Tyquan Thornton. I don't want to tell you where I had Tyquan Thornton ranked among wide receivers, because at this point it just doesn't matter anymore.
I want to know. I would like to know. Come on.
No.
14th.
So I broke up wide receivers by X and Z receivers, right? So there's 2 different categories, inside guys and outside guys, essentially. And I think I had him as X13 or X14. So look, I'm fully willing to admit that I might be the wrong one here, right? I am fully willing to admit that I could easily be the wrong one here. There's no doubt about that. But in my mind, taking Tyquan Thornton ahead of Alec Pierce and George Pickens is a tough one to swallow. I can kind of understand. I had Tyquan Thornton as X11, so I sold him short a little bit. I can sort of understand the George Pickens thing. I talked about some of the work ethic concerns, some of the maturity concerns that he had as a prospect. So I can understand the fact that maybe they stayed away for that reason. And we spoke to Tyquan Thornton, and he sounds like a guy that is willing to work, comes from a program at Baylor that seems to stress that and seems to push the best out of him and that sort of thing. And he did get better each year at Baylor. So maybe that's an angle to it with Pickens. If you're going for the speed on the outside, I can't quite wrap my head around going Tyquan Thornton ahead of Alec Pierce. That's the one that I just don't necessarily see. I think Alec Pierce he's not as fast, right? He's not as fast, but he's bigger, more physical receiver, and he just has a more complete profile. His route running is just more complete at this stage, and his route tree is fuller, more branches to it than a guy like Tyquan Thornton. So again, that's their guy, and I'm willing to raise my hand and say that could very well be the one that's wrong, and they could prove to be right. At that position, I have a tough time giving them the benefit of the doubt, but here we go. And there's reports out there already that the Steelers were interested in Tyquan Thornton, was one report out there. Or another mystery team was going to take Tyquan Thornton if the Patriots didn't jump them to get him. So it's teach their own, right?
I would be very happy if the Steelers report was right, because again, as we know, the Steelers almost can't miss when it comes to receivers. Their bad receivers are Claypool. So
so Nakobe Dean finally off the board here at 81 to the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Eagles got Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean in this draft. They got both Georgia studs. I mean, besides Trayvon Walker, obviously, they got both Georgia studs there in terms of the pure best tapes at Georgia were definitely Davis and Nakobe Dean. So they got those two guys, the Eagles did. So at this point, you see Dean off the board. Finally, if you're the Patriots, I'm really thinking if they're thinking linebacker at all, I'm thinking that this has to be the spot where they're going to take their linebacker. Otherwise, there's not going to be any impact linebackers left, right? We're going to be at a point of the draft where they're all gone.
Right. We are getting close. Pick 83 right now. The Patriots are up at 85. Again, we'll look quickly here at Evans. Hold on one second.
My best available that they're not going to draft from.
Yes, we want to look at the best available that they're literally Bill Belichick wouldn't even use this as toilet
paper. It's almost like Bill read my top 50 and was like, I'm just going to purposely draft nobody off this list just to stick it to Evans.
Bill Belichick blew his nose in this moments ago.
Yeah. So Nakobe Dean cross off.
Dean is gone. You mentioned Winfrey here, who you like.
Senior Bowl MVP, Perrion Winfrey.
Again, the chat wants Chanel or McCollum bad here. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Bad. I feel that. I'm with you. I think a guy like Perrion Winfrey is really interesting.
So, chat, I just want to prepare you, right? You know what that means, right? The guy you really wanted made it all the way to 85.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen.
It's not gonna happen. Perrion Winfrey. 290, 290 pounds, interior penetrator. He's like a poor man's Aaron Donald. Like that's kind of the attraction there, right? That's sort of the skill set. Is he's undersized for an interior player, but he's got great explosiveness. He gets off the ball really well, and he can get after the quarterback and penetrate against the run and make plays in the backfield. So if the Patriots are looking for some versatility and some explosiveness up the field on the defensive line, he's certainly someone that I would maybe consider here in this spot. Like I said, won the MVP down at the Senior Bowl. The Patriots have already drafted two guys from the Senior Bowl. I'm like 90% sure that Tyquan Thornton was a Senior Bowl guy also. So there's definitely some you make that marriage happen, but I do like the idea of some of these corners, Zion McCollum and Tyreek Woolen there at number 9. Those two guys are really, really good athletes and kind of high-end prospects, guys that could potentially develop into starting outside corners with really good athletic traits. I actually like McCollum's tape a little bit better. Woolen, I think, is a lot more raw than McCollum is. McCollum has really good ball skills. He just played at the FCS level, so it's just a little bit different. Tyreek Woolen, excuse me. I see a really raw player there. That is strictly a ball of clay. A guy that ran, I think, a 4.26 was the official time in the 40-yard dash. He's a very fast, very big. He's 6'4" and ran 4.26. So he was a wide receiver, Tyreek Woolen, and then he switched over to corner later on in his career. So he only has 2 seasons of corner tape.
Leal goes to the Steelers.
DeMarvin Leal. So I'm glad the Patriots didn't take DeMarvin Leal.
And the Patriots are now on the clock.
The Patriots are back on the clock. My hands are up, John.
Pick of the litter. Evan, you got anybody you want, buddy?
I would say anybody I want. I'm going Zion. I'm going Zion McCollum here. I like Leo Chenal too, though. I would be good with either one of those guys.
So neither of those guys. Who? Let's go off the board and predict who they're going to take that you've never heard of. Pick a random guy. Just pick somebody deep down into your spreadsheet. Go to about 130 or 140.
Okay, let's go to corner because
let's go to corner and pick your 11th.
I think that there's a really good chance that they have their own corner in mind. That is not the corner I'm thinking of.
Yeah, let's try to think of it this way.
So a couple of other guys, Josh Jobe from Alabama, long physical corner, had better tape in 2020 than in 2021. That's another Bama guy. Jalen Amore Davis, another Bama guy, right? That maybe they could call up Nick Saban and work with that again. I really think Kobe Bryant is an interesting player out of Cincinnati. Those 2 guys, I think, or 3 guys, I think, would be interesting at corner. Jack Jones from okay, so oh boy, we finally got one, John. I think we finally got one.
It always happens, right? It happens around the 3rd round, and they're like, "There's the guy. This is the one everyone at NFL Network is going to be excited about." Who do we have?
I'm excited about this one. The Patriots have selected Houston corner Marcus Jones with the 85th pick in the draft. Marcus Jones is an absolute baller with one caveat. You're going to hate it. I can't wait to tell you. He's 5'8".
He runs a 4.6.
He's 5'8".
Yeah.
So he's extremely undersized. He, in my opinion, is probably going to have to play in the slot. But when you watch Marcus Jones play, this dude is a baller. He's got great ball skills. He has mirror match ability. He's got great play speed. He can track receivers all over the field. He can make plays on the football despite his size. Really good closing burst. And this is going to give you other vibes of another player I'll mention here in a second. He is one of the best punt and kick returners in the country. Easily one of the most dynamic return men in the country. And there is some elements of his game where he can play offense, kind of like Devin Hester did for the Chicago Bears as like a gadget player. He did that for Houston as well. So I think the overall player that I'm describing is going to make Patriots fans think of Cyrus Jones. I know it will, but I think you're getting a guy here that has got more natural ability at corner than Cyrus Jones did. But yeah, I really love Marcus Jones. We've talked about him a lot on the pod. We nailed this one. This is one that we had. So I'm excited about that.
At this slot, this is something you had?
Yeah, somewhere around here. I think this is the first pick in the draft that I can actually say that the Patriots picked a guy where we all thought they would pick a guy, and they picked a guy that we all had on our big boards and all had on our mock drafts and all that kind of stuff. So we finally got one here with Marcus Jones. I'm excited about this pick. The Patriots, you also have to remember, and I know that a lot of people ultimately don't really care about special teams, but Gunnar Olszewski's not here anymore. So they did have to get somebody in the building, I think, that had the ability to return kicks and punts. And Marcus Jones is easily the best return man in the draft. It's not even remotely close.
9 career return touchdowns.
Yeah, he is an absolute beast on returns. I think ultimately he's going to be a slot corner. I think that he's just plain too small to play any place else. But I think that he is going to be a really good slot corner. And like I said, I think he's got the speed and the mirror match skills to be able to do it. In some ways, I think that you might actually look at him and see the guys down in Miami and say, okay, well, maybe he can shadow a Tyreek Hill. Maybe he can shadow a Jalen Waddle. Maybe he can run across the field with an Isaiah McKenzie, right? I think you have that kind of play speed and that kind of coverage ability.
And the Titans just took Willis here, the quarterback,
Okay.
Malik Willis. So after that, but yeah, go ahead, yeah, stay on this pick, Evan.
Yeah, so I really think that this is a player that Patriots fans are going to really like. I know it's the size, the athletic testing wasn't as good in the athletic testing as he was in terms of watching him play and how fast he plays on tape. So I know that there's going to be some people that are like, "Ugh, I'm just not sure," But I'm telling you, this guy can really play football. He is a football player through and through, and I think that this is going to be a good pick for the Patriots. You talk about Miles Bryant last year, for example, right? You just couldn't have him out there. Right towards the end of the year, Isaiah McKenzie, right. Some of these other receivers against Miles Bryant were just absolutely torching Bryant, and Marcus Jones, I think, comes in and is able to compete right away for some of those backup slot reps and return kicks. And then maybe eventually down the road, you hope that he can take over for Jonathan Jones, right? Like that's kind of the goal here. He also had shoulder surgery, didn't test, had shoulder surgery this offseason. And I think that also probably knocked him down the board a little bit too. I think he would have gone a little bit higher if it wasn't for the injury. So really good football player. Really excited about this one, and we finally got one. So I'm excited about that.
You got one, Evan. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So again, positions of need. This is 1, 2, 3 positions of need. Another one being linebacker. Again, are these necessarily the players people expected them to draft with their picks? No. But these are all positions that they needed to address in the draft. You have to think linebacker here is just a logical place to go, or kind of a bigger body here up front on that D line.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I also don't hate the idea of double dipping at defensive back, because a guy like Marcus Jones is purely a slot, right? You're not going to play him outside at 5'8". So maybe you come back here and you get Zion McCollum and you pair those two guys together. And now you have your outside guy with your slot corner to build in the future. I wouldn't hate that. You also have those pick back-to-back, essentially 121 and 127 in the fourth round. So maybe they can sneak in another corner with one of those picks as well. So I'm excited about this one. I think that this is going to be.
Would you have preferred one of these other guys higher here on your board?
I mean, I think that a guy like Zion McCollum has better raw outside traits. Like, I think that's the thing, right? You're talking about a slot. Like, you're talking about a nickel corner here. And some of these other guys, I think,
which is base nowadays. So again,
right.
That's potential starter.
Other guys would have potentially had more ability on the outside, like Tyreek Woolen. Tyreek Woolen. Keep on getting Tyquan Thornton and Tyreek Woolen confused. Tyreek Woolen and Zion McCollum are outside guys. Those guys have the size and the skill to play on the outside. Marcus Jones isn't that. I honestly, I know that it drives Patriots fans nuts that they put so much emphasis on returning and on special teams. But this, to me, at least in year one, I think he's going to come to the practice field in training camp, and he's going to be like the best punt returner in camp by far. So I think that that's really what you're looking at here early, and I know that that's going to give people some real Cyrus Jones.
I know, and I mean, you wonder if Cyrus Jones didn't fumble everything in his first 10 seconds of being a pro, if things would have turned out differently. But Cyrus Jones' brain was broken almost immediately upon entering the NFL, and he never recovered. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen a person doubt themselves more than Cyrus Jones.
I don't think this kid is like that. Watching him
you
play,
could see it in the interviews, in the locker room after the game. He looked lost and he looked broken. It was a very strange thing to watch that happen to him. And it happened so fast.
Yeah, I don't see that with Marcus Jones, because when I watch him play on tape, the kid's got some swagger. Like he's got some of that confidence. When you watch him play, you just don't think about I don't think one fumble is going to bury this kid, right? Like Cyrus Jones, it felt like quicksand. Like as soon as he fumbled once,
Immediately.
it was just like, he was just cratering at that point. I don't see Marcus Jones like that. I think that he's somebody that is going to have a little bit more mental toughness than that. And mainly, look, you got to talk about the special teams value, because at this point in the draft at 85, you're talking about developmental guys. We're talking about guys like Zion McCollum, right? And Tyreek Woolen, and these players that probably aren't going to play as rookies on one side of the ball, right? Like they're not going to play on defense. They're not going to start on defense as rookies. So Marcus Jones is going to develop in the slot behind John Jones, but he's could potentially make a day one impact as a return man. So
yeah,
good.
No, this is where we take the punter, right?
It's possible. I can't believe that they're not all over Leo Chenal. He's just such a Patriot. Like I said, he's like a more athletic Jawan Bentley.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that just I'm really shocked about that one. But other than that, I mean, yeah, we're definitely in Ariza. His over under, I think on Bet Online, shout out, was I think 117. So we're right there.
Yeah, 117. Getting there.
Yeah.
Getting there. So again, here we go. Marcus Jones, he's kind of short, didn't test. So we don't know speed wise. What is
Plays
this?
fast though.
Huh? But
plays real
fast. You're right.
Yeah. Yep. Plays fast, has the footwork, has the mirroring skills. You see his explosiveness all over his tape. And honestly, if you're worried about play speed, not that anybody really is saying they're worried about play speed, but if that's just something that you're kind of thinking about, I mean, let's keep in mind that you don't have 9 return touchdowns in college if you're not kind of fast, right? Like,
Right.
guys that can return kicks like that to the house consistently, like you got to have some sort of speed at that point. And I think he's got the footwork. I mean, this is a guy that really can stay glued to people in coverage. And I'm really, I'm high on the player. If he was, I talked about this with Roger McCreary from Auburn, who went early tonight, like in the 34, 35 range to Tennessee, I think it was. If Marcus Jones was 5'10" instead of 5'8", he's off the board 50 picks ago. You know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. That's just the difference there. So we're just talking about a little, a measurables thing. It's a raw measurables thing that's going to probably pigeonhole him to the slot. And I think some teams are going to say, we're just not going to take a chance on a guy that's 5'8" in the NFL. We just don't count on it. But I keep saying that. And I want to remind people that there are guys that have succeeded in the NFL at that kind of size. Ricardo Allen, who had a long career, he was 5'9". There was other DBs that
he could just go chase Elijah Moore around all day, and that'll be fine.
Right. They're not asking him to go up.
You got Tyreek Hill and Elijah Moore in the division, both of whom are in the 5'10" range. Go ahead, chase those guys around. That's a tough job.
Right. You're not asking him to go up against, Gabriel Davis, who's 6'2" and built, right? You're not going to put him on those types of guys. You're going to put him on the guys he belongs on, the slot receivers and the quick and fast guys. And he's going to be able to run with those guys. And none of them are going to beat him at the catch point because they're, 2 inches taller than he is. Like, I just don't really see that being a major concern. And I also wouldn't say that on tape he's got major play strength concerns either. I think he's actually pretty burly for his size. So I don't know. I get the concern about the ceiling with the player because he's 5'8". I mean, he's tiny. He's tiny by NFL standards. So obviously there's going to be some concerns in that respect. But you have to understand that the player, he's just a good football player. And I think he's going to survive in the league somewhere. And he's definitely going to survive as a return man. So I think Patriots fans will be really excited about seeing him return kicks in the preseason. That's going to be a big thing, right? We always get jacked up for the rookies in preseason and training camp anyways. Just wait for that first preseason game in August and Marcus Jones goes back there to return the punt. That's going to be something that I think a lot of people will be excited to see or should be excited to see.
Excellent. So again, Patriots at 94. We are now The Cowboys on the clock here at 88. Pick is in. Actually, Buffalo is on the clock here, 89. So we're getting close to it. And Evan, you have your predicting chops back now. Now now that after being slapped around for the first 2 rounds, do you feel a little bit better about yourself? You feel like you've got your footing and you can actually accurately predict who the Patriots might take a look at here?
I just, again, I keep on coming back to the same player, and
That's it.
I can't wrap my head around the fact that the Patriots are going to keep passing on Leo Chenal. He's such a perfect fit for what they like at Mike linebacker, and everybody that's clamoring for speed and everybody that wants more athleticism. This guy had a 9.99 relative athletic score out of 10. 9.99 out of 10. That's elite.
And again, if you look at what they're doing here, one common thread, and certainly with the first 2 picks, elite athletes at their positions right now. They're obviously placing an emphasis.
Yeah.
What's really interesting about the receiver is just totally unlike what they would normally draft in a receiver, just in terms of the physical profile. Not a 3-cone guy, but a spectacular vertical speed guy. And Strange also was a terrific athlete. So it feels like that's a thing. So Chenal would definitely fit that bill.
Yeah, these are all. I mean, obviously, Marcus Jones didn't test, so we don't have his exact measurements and all that kind of stuff in terms of testing. But if they drafted a guy like Chenal, or they drafted a guy like Zion McCollum here, and they went double dip on defensive backs, we're talking about guys that are in the 90+ percentile at their positions in terms of athlete, right? And that's, I think, one thing that we continuously heard from Macro and from the Patriots throughout this pre-draft process is that they were going to stress speed. I asked the question. I said, Gerard Mayo talked about getting faster on defense and getting more playmakers on defense. And Macro's response is, we want to get faster everywhere, not just on defense. We know we need to get faster all over the field. And I think that so far it's been they've been practicing what they preach. I mean, a guard's a guard. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Cole Strange is in the category of getting faster as a team. I'm not necessarily going to say that, but Tyquan Thornton and Marcus Jones are 2 guys that are definitely in that faster category. So It's interesting. I also think what's another thing, just kind of like a big picture draft thing here that I found really interesting.
Jalen Colbert, Cowboys, by the way. That was that.
So another receiver in that X profile that I had ahead of Tyquan Thornton.
Yeah, exactly.
A really interesting tweet here from Mike Giardi. The gap between interior or guards, particularly, was 27 or 29 was Cole Strange, right? And the next guard didn't go off the board until 57.
Right.
So there was a 30-pick gap between guards. So whenever that reported guard run was going to start in the mid-30s or something like that for Cole Strange, that's not how the rest of the board shook out.
And that's the other thing is, unless, and again, I don't want to relitigate the entire thing, but we both agree it's just not a position. They just don't have the luxury to pick that type of position in the first round, given the direction that the NFL is going. It just isn't a thing you do. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter if it's John Hanna there. You just don't draft a guard. But also, again, if you do, he has to be a zillion miles better than the next one taken. And if it's close between that and the next 3 or 4 off the board, and they don't go off the board until 30 picks later, you messed it up. You messed up. You messed up. You messed up the asset. You took somebody where you didn't need to take them. It is what it is at that point. And if you didn't love anybody there and you loved everybody the same and you just wanted your Thornton and your Strange, just keep drafting, just keep trading back and then get them. And that's fine. And accumulate more assets and move them wherever you need to move them to get the players you want to get. So again, it just felt like it was, oh God, I can't look at Wayne Newton. Weird.
So the one name that I see popping up with Marcus Jones a lot for Patriots fans is Ellis Hobbs. And that's going back a little ways for some of the younger people here that I know we kind of skew a little bit younger with our demographic. I'm old enough to remember Ellis Hobbs, and I don't hate that comparison. I like to think that
Ellis was competitive, by the way.
Ellis was good.
Ellis
People
was
have a
good, and
bad,
Ellis was competitive, and
yeah,
Ellis
bad
just
rap for Ellis Hobbs. For
bad
some
rap
reason.
because all anybody sees is him friggin' trailing Plaxico into the end zone.
Right.
But Ellis was competitive. I mean,
Yeah.
his last year was a little bit less so. But yeah, that he's not. You're right. He does get a bad rap.
Yeah, he was a competitive player. He was a regular contributor for multiple years. And I think at this point in the
And
draft,
he was a regular guest of 7 Sports Extra when I was working at
there you
Channel
go.
7 at the time. And
And
we were
a
tight with
return
Ellis.
man.
It was Ellis and Ben Watson. We had those guys on all the time, but Ellis was a great guy. I really enjoyed having him on. But yeah, go ahead.
And a return man too, right?
Yep.
He also is a return man too. I think that when you look at a guy, this point of the draft, I think a lot of people think that at 85 you should be drafting the next Stephon Gilmore. Like you should be drafting some like absolute stud at this point. At this point in the draft, you're just looking for guys that are going to be able to have a real role on your football team, right? Have a real role, carve out a full-time role, and play a considerable amount of the snaps. You're not necessarily looking for the Pro Bowlers here, right? If you hit on a Pro Bowler in the 3rd round, you kind of stumbled into it, quite frankly, as an evaluator.
Well,
So,
again, where you can is positions like guard,
right,
which is
sure.
where you draft
Right.
guards.
But
yeah.
here, just a guy like Marcus Jones again is. I know that he's going to be able to have a roster spot both as a return man and hopefully as a slot corner or like a 6th defensive back. So in the nickel role. So that's what you're looking at. Like you're not. I think people overrate these picks sometimes. Is ultimately what my point is. The hit rate of 3rd round picks, and when I say
yes, you have to be smart and know what the expectation is of a 3rd round player. A 3rd round player is usually at best eventual starter. It's not Pro Bowler. That's kind of if they get to the point where they can start for you in a couple of years or before the end of their first contract, and they're a regular contributor, that's usually considered a hit.
Yeah, so like the best 3rd round picks like that I can think of off the top of my head for the Patriots are like the Daron Harmons and the Logan Ryans of the world, right? Those are the guys that really.
Well, Tooney was a 3rd rounder.
Tooney was a 3rd rounder too. Yes, but those are, I think, kind of the category that we're in, and those guys were all really good football players once upon a time for the Patriots. Now, are they more role players than all pros? Certainly, but they played roles. They were here for a long time, and they were serviceable players. And I think that that's what you're going for here in the draft. And a guy like Marcus Jones, I feel like, is a lot different than, let's say, a Ronnie Perkins or an Anthony Jennings, where I wasn't 100% sold that transition was going to work. We'll see if it works with Perkins. The jury's still out on that one. His story's still not complete. I'll give him that. But I think that Marcus Jones has a path. Like, I think that there's a path for him to be one of those, Logan Ryan types or Ellis Hobbs types or something like that, which is ultimately, I think, the most important thing here.
Yep. A couple picks to go here. If we get a little bit closer, and again, I know everybody's binkies are still on the board.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Hold on, I'm just kind of clicking through here to see where we're at.
Yeah, I think we're at around what are we, like 88 at this point?
No, we're 91 or so.
Oh, we're past that. Okay.
Yeah. We're getting moving. I'm just trying to catch up here because again, TV and internet. I'm trying to see when the last pick tipped was.
I think 92. Sean Ryan to the Packers was the last pick.
92. There we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're at what?
93. Patriots pick at 94, right?
Right. Yep. And I think they're picking here. And honestly, it wouldn't shock me if they make 2 more picks tonight. If they were to trade up from 121 and 127 and package those picks together to move back up for a late 3rd rounder, I'm going to say the name, but it's not about the name. It's about the move. Dalton Keene, they did that with Dalton Keene a couple years ago, right?
The amount of qualifiers you have to give to not upset people, Evan.
Right. I'm not saying that I hope that they draft another Dalton Keene. I'm saying that that's the move up. That
you heard it here first. Go find the next Dalton Keene.
Oh, my goodness. So I think there's enough talent on the board, especially talent that fits their profile, that it might be worth it, because once you get into the fourth
you want to
round,
get as many picks in that top 100 as you can. That's kind of the goal.
and once you get into tomorrow,
you're
and
into special teamers.
Yeah. And you're also just in a weird, like the guys that fell through the cracks, that slipped out the back of the top 100, that the first pick tomorrow will be Leo Chenal. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how that works. So if you're going to leapfrog some of those teams at the top of the fourth round for a guy that you think can actually make an impact on your roster, like a Chenal, like a Zion McCollum, like somebody like that, you got to go and get that guy now. So I think that there's still maybe potentially 2 picks here for the Patriots in this third round, but we're coming up. The Patriots are in the hole right now at 94. So
they're on the clock.
They're in the hole. We're on 93.
Oh, we're on 93.
Yep.
All right. Let me see here. Let's make sure we haven't been caught off guard with anything.
All right.
Nope. We're still waiting.
Yep. I got to say, Jordan Schultz, Schultz report himself. He's got the pick line. So that's how these people do it. A little peel behind the curtain here. A lot of these people that are tipping picks, they got somebody. It's not like they're getting the picks directly from the GMs, right? Because I've done this before. It's not like you got somebody with the GMs, right? Or you're texting a source in every single team and getting the pick. They got access to the pick line. The pick line, because of the broadcast, needs to set up, right? They need to get the graphics on the screen, and they need to get everything in order to make the pick. They get it maybe 5 to 10 minutes. I'd say 5 minutes.
And the 49ers have taken Ty Davis Price here, 93, so the Patriots are on the clock.
I got to be honest with you. I have no idea who Ty Davis Pierce is. None whatsoever. So
just be happy the Patriots didn't take him.
But I will say this: just spinning it forward now that the Patriots are on the clock again, there was a slight run today of running backs. The Patriots could potentially take a running back today. It's not a need that I would have taken here, but it is something that they have to address probably at some point in the draft. And because the run did start, I could see maybe here being a place where they take one. I mean, when
they love to do it. They love to be 2 years ahead of the running back position.
Yeah, a guy that I've never heard of just went at running back. So that means the running back board is starting to get pretty thin. And there are some guys out there that I really like Taylor Beatty, for example, from Missouri. I love his game. There's some other running backs.
Anyone coming in a James White sort of capacity?
Okay, so the Patriots traded the pick.
They did.
So there's that. Yep, they traded the pick to Carolina. We'll see what the trade was for. No, we still don't have that yet, but the Patriots are no longer on the clock. So I can tell you that.
Okay.
So we'll see if they just traded back. I don't have the full draft order right in front of me right now, so I don't know if the Carolina Panthers have another pick in the third round. We can pull it up, but I think that the Patriots must have traded back a little bit here. I'm interested to see what they added here.
They could have traded into next year.
They could have traded into next year. It's possible, but if they're just saying that they think that the top 100 is done giving them contributors at this point, that's a little rich for me. I would have liked them to take another swing here in the top 100.
You thought they were taking 2. They're going to take 0.
Yeah, I think that there's still players here. Now, maybe they think that they can get them tomorrow, but I don't know. I'm not in the school of thought of like, let's see if we get lucky and we get our guy tomorrow. You know what I mean? I'm just not in that world. So Carolina doesn't have another pick tonight. So this pick, if this order is correct,
2000. It's a pick 137 and a 2023 third round pick.
Okay, so this is interesting a little bit, I guess, to spin it forward. They traded their own third round pick in 2023 for Devontae
Parker, and now they got it back here.
So they've just got it back from Carolina. That's the idea of the trade here. And Carolina is taking Matt Corral. So Carolina
they got it back, sort of. They had to give up one of their own third round picks, but you're also assuming Carolina is going to be terrible, and this is a pick that's going to be in the 70s or higher. next year as opposed
Yeah.
to 94. So, you're probably gaining 25 draft slots from where you were in so-so draft into next year. Plus you're gaining pick 137 here.
Right. So now they have 121, 127,
And
137. So I'm not done. I don't think that they're necessarily done tonight, right? Because they could easily, now that they've filled that gap in the fourth round,
you can use 2/4 or
you can
a
use
fourth
2/4 to jump back into the third round here and then still have a pick in the fourth round tomorrow night. So, or tomorrow during the day, I guess. I think that this is a good trade for the Patriots ultimately. Now, when we get back into the 2023 draft, which Alex Barth might have a mock draft in 2023 tomorrow or on Sunday. I'm not sure. I'll have to ask him. But now they'll have 4 picks in the top 100 next year because they'll have 3, and they'll have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds, I should say. They'll have their first round pick, their second round pick, Carolina's third round pick, and then the comp pick they're going to get for JC Jackson.
Yeah.
Right. So they're going to have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds next year. They're probably going to get the top comp pick. I believe they're going to get the top comp pick in the draft next year because of JC. So I believe he signed the biggest free agent deal. So just for comparison's sake, Detroit actually got the top comp pick in the draft this year for Kenny Golladay. And that was the 97th pick.
97.
So the Patriots are looking at 4 top 100 picks next year,
right?
By making this move. So
what is the what's the total in this round? How many? 100 and what?
There is 105 picks in the third round.
Oh boy.
So I think that there is still a chance that they can come back up here and trade 2 of those 4s to move back into the third. That's what I'm hoping for here, because I really think that once you get to 121, which is their first pick in the fourth round,
there's not a lot left.
You're getting deep. That's for sure. You could probably get your running back there. You probably could get somebody that's an impact running back there. That's around where they got Ramondre Stevenson last year.
Yeah.
So
anyway, this is a really, really from a value perspective, it's a terrific trade for the Patriots. So,
yes.
I mean, this is a higher third next year and a fourth is a steal.
Yes. And the big reason why this pick costs so much, I think, for Carolina is because it was for a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
It was for Matt Corral. So I think that we're get to the point where with these picks, the pick is for a quarterback. So you're shopping the pick to teams that need a quarterback, right? And it becomes a little bit of a bidding war there. And the Patriots, they have plenty of picks tomorrow. They don't need another pick tomorrow. So they say they get a value of 2 4th-round picks here from Carolina, ultimately, because you treat next year's pick like it's a round later this year, but you actually get the pick in the 3rd round next year. So I think that this is I don't know how you can be upset about this at all.
No, this is a good trade. This is a really good trade from a value perspective. If teams want to give you stuff like this, you got to take it.
Yep.
So so curious if they move back, Evan, but I'm also curious whether we can filibuster that long all the way to 105 to see if they do. So
I think just resetting this draft, this to me kind of feels it doesn't feel like that. I don't even know what draft this feels like, but this is such a off the beaten path draft for the Patriots. They draft a guy from Chattanooga. They draft a guy from Houston. I don't think they've ever drafted a guy from Baylor. I'll have to double check that, but I don't think that they have. They've certainly never drafted a receiver in Tyquan Thornton's mold, right? 4'2", 6'2", 180. Like, that's just not at all what they typically do. This is a weird draft for the Patriots, and I'm not saying that it's Grove's draft. It's not Belichick's draft, or
it's a weird draft. It's just weird
on it, but it's just a weird one. And I think the one thing that you continuously hear from people around the league is it's just a draft where there was just so much uncertainty in this, especially on day 2 and in the middle rounds, that it was going to get a little bit wonky. There just really wasn't a consensus. There wasn't a clear board. The consensus boards this year, you could throw them out. Like all the consensus boards that we use, mock draft database, the athletics consensus board. I love all those resources, but this is just a draft that had none of that, right? I mean, nobody followed it. I mean, I just mentioned the 49ers took a running back in the top 100 I've never heard of. So we're really into sort of a free for all, and I don't know. Maybe Bill Belichick ends up being the best in that kind of situation. When chalk drafts happen, I feel like that's where Bill almost outsmarts himself, and he goes against the chalk when everybody else is going chalk, and that sort of ends up hurting him in a way, right? But here, I kind of feel like they've just sort of identified their guys. They've moved around the board to get them, and here we are. Now, I would like to see one more pick in the top 100, though. I would.
I know you want to, Evan, but I'm going to shut down this stream. And then
we're going to talk to Marcus Jones here in a second. So
we got to jump off. We're going to talk to Marcus Jones. So here's what we're going to tell you guys once again. We might be done for the night. Evan's not. Evan's got a lot of stuff coming.
Yes.
He'll have player profiles, more in-depth stuff coming on our Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel. So again, subscribe. A lot of you're all watching here. Please give us likes, subscribe. All of that stuff makes us feel good, but it also helps us pump out the content here. So please, if you're a fan of what we do here at CLNS Media, please support us and give us a follow here. Give us a subscribe. Give us a like. But just keep watching. We got a ton more. There's more coming up tonight. But also, if they trade in, as has been our promise, if they trade back into this draft, as been our promise the whole time, we're jumping right back on here, and we're going to analyze that pick too. So if we get any
more picks in the third round, so it's possible. I'm going to still say it's possible.
If it happens, we're going to turn it around. We'll be right back. It'll be a new stream. But again, turn your notifications on. You'll be notified as soon as we go live. We'll jump on here and we'll analyze that pick for you as well. But if that doesn't happen, we're back tomorrow and we'll probably jump in and take you through that round 4 run. What time's the draft start tomorrow, Evan?
Noon. At noon.
We'll take you through that round 4 run. And through all of those picks, and then we'll kind of do something at the end of the day to recap everything as well. So again, we're going to wrap it up here. Patriots make one of their 2 selections. Then they traded pick number 94 to the Panthers for a 2023 third round pick, and pick 137 this year. That's a friggin' steal of a trade. Evan's hoping they jump back in here. If they do, we'll see you in a few minutes. If not, we'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Good night.